Hi, hello, welcome. I'm here, you're here, we're all here for Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Fourth Wing is a book. It's a fun book. It's not a good book, but you know what it is? It's a romp. I love a romp, and I cannot wait to tell you today all about the dumb shit that happens in this book. Like, oh my god, I can't wait. Let's get into it. Pause. Let me give you a very brief synopsis. Fourth Wing is about dragon riders at Dragon Rider War School who do dragon war and fall in love. What more could you want? What less could you want? Let's get going. So we meet our heroine, Violet Sorrengail, on conscription day, which is the day she becomes a student at Basgiath War College. Violet is not who you would expect to be a dragon rider. She is short, she is frail, she is curvy, she is delicate. She is not like the other girls physically. Rebecca Yarros actually has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. That's the inspiration for what Violet deals with, even though it's never named in the book. So she's frail because her mom was sick while she was pregnant with her. And then when Violet was born, she had brown hair that turned silver at the end. And that's so that you can tell that she's the main character. Basgiath is made up of 4 different quadrants. You have healers, infantry, riders, and scribes. Students get to pick which quadrant they join at the beginning, and I don't really think they can switch. Obviously, riders are the best, but it's like there's only so many dragons that can go around. When they finish college, they go on to protect the borders of Navarre from the kingdom of Poromiel. The people of Poromiel don't have dragons. They have griffins, which are smaller and less powerful. Navarre is a very diverse kingdom broken into provinces, most of which are irrelevant except for Tyrrendor. 5 years ago, this guy named Fen Ryerson led a rebellion in Tyrrendor. The rebellion was stomped out, all of the rebels were killed, but the rebel children were given these magic tattoos called rebellion relics. All people with those tattoos are called marked ones, and they all have to join the Riders Quadrant as part of their punishment. But they get dragons, and dragons are obviously goated for a ton of reasons. First of all, they're dragons. 2, riders are magically linked to their dragons, and who channel magic into them through this special bond. That magic gives them their own cool special dragon power, which is called a signet. Anyway, Violet actually lives at Basgiath because her mom, Lilith Sorrengail, is a general, and she's been stationed there forever. Violet has 2 Dragon Rider siblings. One of them was Brennan, who was killed in the rebellion, and the other one is Mira, who is a current Dragon Rider. But Violet doesn't want to be a Dragon Rider like her mom and siblings. She wants to be a scribe like her dad was. Scribe's job is book. They handle records and history, and they decide what gets written down and what doesn't. Allegedly, this is very powerful. Also, she's weak and fragile and beautiful, and that doesn't make for a very good dragon rider. But her mom doesn't care. She's forcing her to be a rider because that's cooler than being a scribe. And if her dad wanted to vote, then he shouldn't have gone and died then, should he? In order to join the rider quadrant, students have to prove they have what it takes. They have to cross this thing called the parapet, which is an 18-inch wide beam 200 feet above the ground. And yes, they do use the Imperial measuring system. So Mira's there to see her off. Mira braids her hair into a little crown braid that becomes her signature hairstyle, like so. She also gifts her with these grippy boots so that she doesn't fall to her death. She also makes Violet dump out all of the heavy, dumb books that she wants to bring, including this fairy tale book about venom and wyverns that she and her dad used to read. She also gives her some really cool dragon scale armor to wear and some sheaths for daggers. Lastly, Mira gives her some advice. She's like, when you get there, go find Dane Atos. So Dane is hot. He has been Violet's best friend since she was 5, but he's 1 year older than her, so he's been in the Rider Quadrant for a year already. And one of the rules is that you don't get to write to anybody your first year. You have to wait until your second year, so they haven't talked in like a year. His dad is also one of Lilith's besties. Dane's only personality trait is keeping Violet safe. You will get tired of it. I promise you'll get tired of it. Mira also warns her to stay away from Xaden Ryerson. Xaden with an X. You can tell by his name that he's a main character, and the X signifies that he's a bad boy. His dad was the Fen Ryerson that I mentioned before. He's also a wing leader, which is like a super high rank at school. So Violet goes to the parapet. She meets Rhiannon and immediately notices that her boots suck. She is not going to make it. So she asks her, hey, Rhiannon, what's your shoe size? And Rhiannon's like, I'm an 8. And Violet's like, oh, I'm a 7. And yes, they do use the American shoe size system in Navarre. So then Violet and Rhiannon each trade a boot. 3 riders are waiting at the entrance of Parapet. 2 are unremarkable, but one is the sexiest thing that Violet's ever laid eyes on. He's tall, with wind-blown black hair and dark brows. The line of his jaw is strong and covered by warm, tawny skin and dark stubble. And when he folds his arms across his torso, The muscles in his chest and arms ripple, moving in a way that makes me swallow. And his eyes are the shade of gold-flecked onyx. The contrast is startling, jaw-dropping even. Everything about him is. His features are so harsh that they look carved, and yet they're astonishingly perfect, like an artist worked a lifetime sculpting him, and at least a year of that was spent on his mouth. He's the most exquisite man I've ever seen, and living in the War College means I've seen a lot of men. Even the diagonal scar that bisects his left eyebrow and marks the top corner of his cheek only makes him hotter. Flaming hot. Scorching hot. Gets you into trouble and you like it level of hot. Ruh-roh, it's Xaden Ryerson. Mira warned her about him. But coming up behind her is her second beef, Jack Barlow. And he just throws some guy off the parapet and announces that he's going to kill Violet. Why he wants to kill her, we literally never find out. Killing Violet is his only personality trait. It's his only goal in life. I assume once he gets it, he's just going to explode. So Violet manages to outrun him. He tries to get her anyway, but then she does this fancy maneuver where she's on the ground and she's holding a literal knife to his literal balls. But she's safe from Jack because they're both riders, and riders can't kill other riders, except for sometimes they can, but not right now. There's this thing called the Codex, which is a big rule book with all the rules cadets have to follow. Violet has it memorized, and for some reason, the Codex is the most important thing here, and everybody turns into a fucking lawyer when it comes to the Codex. Rhiannon also made it. If you give a shit. Then she sees Dane. He only gets 2 paragraphs talking about how pretty he is before Violet says she's going to barf, so he's clearly not a serious romantic contender. But he is a squad leader, which makes him better than other people. Okay, so you know how I said that Xaden was a wing leader? Here's how the whole system breaks down. All the riders in Basgiath are called cadets. All the cadets are broken into 4 wings, which are led by wing leaders like Xaden. Each wing is broken into 3 sections. Each section is broken into 3 squads. Dane is basically middle management. So Dane sees Violet and he's like, Violet, what the heck? You were supposed to be a scribe where you would be safe. And so then Dane puts Violet and Rhiannon into his squad, and then he takes a quick break to take Violet up to his room, platonically. He shows her his cool dragon powers by unlocking his door without keys. So riders get the signet, but they also get other powers called lesser magic. And that lets them do things like use a pen or use mage lights. I'm not kidding about the pen. They can't use pens without magic. Everybody who doesn't have a dragon is like, oh yeah, quills are fine. We'll just be fine with this for 627 years. He bandages her legs and then they just kind of long at each other. He's like, wow, your mom is so crazy to send you to the rider quadrant. Maybe we can ask the scribes if they'll let you in? And Violet is not going to do that. Dane insists that she's going to die here, but at this point we're 8% of the way through the book, so I'm pretty sure he's wrong. Violet's not convinced, so we go back to the courtyard. Commandant Panchek, who's one of the adults in charge of Basgiath, tells us that 301 people survived the parapet. 67 have died, but don't you kind of wish that 2 more had? Panchek tells them how most of them are going to die and only about 25% of them will live to graduate. So we have to talk about the nature of Basgiath real quick because it makes no fucking sense. Specifically, the Rider Quadrant. So this year, 368 living, breathing people attempted to cross the parapet. Out of that, about 20% just straight died. Of the remainder, 25% will survive to graduate. So that's 75 people? And presumably this includes children of nobles, generals, colonels, whatever, people who have actual standing in Vare. And that does nothing to move the needle on whether or not these people want to support this forever war with poor Miel. Because I'll be real, if I was hot shit in Vare, and I definitely would be, 3 out of 4 of my kids die trying to ride a dragon, yeah, I would sour on the war effort. Yeah, I'd be like, fuck this, bitch. We're moving to poor Miel. They won't kill my baby. And I think that's why Violet is presented as the smartest character in the book. It's not that she's smart, it's that everyone else is dumb. They have been at war for 400 years and their winning strategy is to just throw the kids into a wood chipper. That's the best idea they have. That's the best idea they've had for generations. The bar is so low. Anyway, everyone gets information. Jack goes to first wing and Violet and Rhiannon go to second wing. But then Xaden and all the other wing leaders have a little chat and Rhiannon, Violet, and Dane get moved into fourth wing. That's right, the name of the book. Since Xaden's going to be in charge of her, he can punish her for anything he wants to, and he definitely will. He is going to bully her because Mira said so. Xaden talks to everyone and he's like, you think you're badass? Watch this shit. And then the dragons come flying. One of them is this very cool blue dragon. Her name is Scale, and she is a blue dagger tail. The rest of them are forgettable. One guy runs off because dragons are too scary for him, and then a dragon just straight up burns him alive. That puts us at 68 deaths today, and maybe you're starting to feel optimistic, but then 2 more people get burned. 2! Oh my god, in this horny dragon book, we cannot even get to 69. It is a travesty. So that's parapet. We never have to do it again. The next day is Violet's first day as a writer, but before she can get a dragon, she has to do some silly little tasks. First, they're going to have to complete the gauntlet, which is a big American Ninja Warrior style obstacle course. And once they complete the gauntlet, then they do presentation, which is where all the dragons look at them and they see who wants to be friends and they see if there's a little spark there. And then finally, there is threshing, which is a free-for-all to claim the dragons. I think that one's supposed to be like, what if the Hunger Games was dragons? It doesn't really pan out that way. You'll see. You'll see when we get to him. So then, I shit you not, Dane makes some bird calls at Violet. He's just like, cheep, 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 cheep. And she's like, Dane wants to talk to me. And so they talk. Dane tells her that Xaden wants her dead so that he can get revenge on Lilith. But don't worry, Dane won't let anything bad happen to her. And then he strokes her face in what I can only assume is a friendly and platonic way. So then Dane tells her about dragons. There are a lot of times in this book, especially like the first, third, where it's just like, here's an exposition drop. Becky said we're going to learn about dragons, so we're learning about dragons. There's 6 colors of dragons: red, orange, green, brown, blue, and black. The colors don't really matter, except obviously black and blue are the most badass. Then they're species, tail, breed, thing, name is based on what their tail looks like. So there's sword tails, morning star tails, dagger tails, scorpion tails. My dragon would be a gun tail, and it would be stronger and more badass than all of the other dragons combined. So Dane has a main character signet. If you aren't a main character, you probably get a common signet like fire, or ice, or water, or whatever. But Dane doesn't. He can read recent memories, but he has to touch the person in order to do it. The signets aren't usually a secret, but Dane's is, and it's classified for plot reasons. So Violet goes to Battle Brief, which is hosted by Professor Devra. All the cadets go to Battle Brief every day so that they can get a threat brief about what's going on with the whole war thing. The class is also taught by Professor Markham, who is also a scribe professor. He sees Violet and he's like, whoa, Violet? Here? You are supposed to be the best scribe we've ever had. And Violet's like, tee-hee, dragons. So we find out that there was an attack by some griffin riders in the east. Dragons power the wards, which protect Navarre from foreign magic and people. But the wards failed. Violet just sort of drops her political beliefs here. She's like, without those wards, we're fucked. It would be open season on Navarian villages when the raiding parties from Poromiel inevitably descend. Those greedy assholes are never content with the resources they have. They always want ours too, and until they learn to be content with our trade agreements, we have no chance of ending conscription in Navarre. So Violet figures out that the griffin attacks took place at a higher altitude than griffins usually go. They wouldn't be strong or be able to use their griffin magic there. Maybe the griffin riders knew that the wards would fail, and maybe the dragons also knew that the wards would fail. She says this, and everyone realizes that Violet is very smart, and they all clap. They don't all clap, but it's you kind of get that vibe where everyone's like, oh my god, she's really smart. Then, in sparring class, students are paired up for hand-to-hand combat fights called challenges. The winner wins a dagger off the loser, and this is a big deal. Jack Barlow, a predator, just straight up breaks a guy's neck and kills him for no reason. But luckily, this is a place where you're allowed to kill people. Remember how it's you couldn't kill people except for when you could? This is a when you could. So Violet has to fight Imogen, who's also a marked one like Xaden. Imogen just comes at her like a spider monkey and straight up like pulls her arm out of her socket. Violet refuses to yield because she's built different, but obviously like she can't just keep fighting. Dane valiantly and masculinely carries her to the healer quadrant. So the healers aren't riders, so they don't have like dragon healing powers. They mostly just use like herbs and casts and like whatever. So Violet's a frequent flyer here on account of her jelly bones. And then this guy Nolan, who's a mender, comes by to fix her. He is a rider. He does have dragon powers. So menders are very rare and powerful because they can just sort of like revert things to their prior state. So like they could go up to a broken bridge and fix it. They could fix a broken bone by just doing a little magic Control Z. Violet's brother Brennan was actually a mender. And so that's part of why it was such a shame to lose him, because like you were losing somebody with such a valuable power. So quick aside, there's this awful trend in this book where like the same conversation between the same characters will happen multiple times, and like it gets so old. Dane is like, hey, you should be a scribe. And Violet's like, no. You had this conversation 3 pages ago. The answer was no 3 pages ago. The answer was no a chapter ago. The answer was no 2 chapters ago. Like, oh my God. But it's just like in there. Like you just have to like read it. Like it's just like, hey, Dane really wants Violet to be a scribe. And it's like, yes, Becky, I know. So later, Violet goes back to the dorms on her own. She expects everybody to euthanize her on arrival, but they don't. They actually just don't even really care that she's back. So she's like, okay, time to read. She whips out this book that Mira gave her. It's this journal that Brennan actually wrote to Mira and gave to her as a guide for surviving the writer's quadrant. So this book is especially special because there's this whole tradition in Navarre where when somebody dies, you just kind of like burn all of their stuff. And this book definitely should have been burnt, but it wasn't. So Brennan's journal gives her a handy-dandy map of where the instructors meet. It turns out that the challenges are actually decided the week before, and even though cadets can request to challenge a specific person, the instructors make the final call. If Violet can sneak in there, she can find out who she's going to be set to fight. So now she has a plan to survive. So later, Violet's just wandering around at night. She has her little book of poisons out. She finds a particularly cool tree with some poison berries, and she climbs up to get them. She's just vibing there when she sees some people in cloaks approach. Then they take their hoods off. It's Imogen, the bitch who tried to rip out Violet's arm. And even worse, she's with Xaden. More riders arrive, all from different years, all with rebellion relics. That's against the rules. Xaden is clearly their leader. He tells them that everyone else wants to see them fail, and it's important that they stick together. And Violet's actually into it. Nobody from her province gives a shit if she lives or dies. Then one girl wants to know how to be good at battle brief. If only they had a beautiful, smart, and sexy main character that they could ask. But they don't, so they all just sort of stand there, dick in hand. Then someone's like, when do we kill Violet? The question on everyone's mind. Xaden's like, I already told you, she's mine. Amazing that Violet doesn't just slide down that tree right then and there. Everyone is dismissed and Violet waits for them to leave. But then suddenly, shadows. She's pulled to Xaden's chest and there's a dagger at her throat. That's right. Bad boy Xaden's power is shadows. That's a super rare and important power, just like a lot of the other ones we've seen so far. Then Violet pulls a knife on him, presumably to cut the violent yet sexual tension. She also throws her knives at him. She doesn't hit him, but she totally could have. Xaden's like, you look all frail and breakable, but you're really a violent little thing, aren't you? He tells her that she should throw her knives at Jack Barlow. Violet's confused that he doesn't just murder her. And he's like, are you going to tattle on me? And she's like, no. And he just like buys it and leaves. The next day, Violet wakes up and thinks about how seeing Dane is the best part of her day, which is pretty funny when you think about how like 90% of their interactions are him trying to send her to book jail. And wow, he's waiting for her. Everyone has silly little jobs to do, and hers is breakfast duty. Today, Violet will be fighting fellow first-year Orin Seifert. So Dane says that he doesn't want to see her hurt, and because Dane sucks, Violet decides not to tell him about Xaden's little club. It's the first time that she has ever kept a secret from Dane, but she knows that he would tattle, and she doesn't want him to. This brings us to our first love triangle. Violet likes Dane likes Violet, but Dane really loves rules. And then at breakfast duty, Violet just sprinkled a little poison over Orin's breakfast and he doesn't notice. So with that out of the way, it's time for more exposition. This time in the form of Professor Cowrie's dragon class. Cowrie can project what's in his mind into the air. Right now, he is showing off some sick dragons. Sick, very nice, very nice. No blue dragons want to bond this year, but Cowrie thinks Scale is really cool. He's right. So he pops her up on the board. She is the baddest bitch. She bonded with a relative of one of her previous riders, and that is usually against dragon law, but she doesn't give an F. This year, there's a black dragon hanging around. He is the only other black dragon besides General Melgren's dragon, and General Melgren is the general, and he has the most powerful signet of all. He can see the outcome of any battle before it even happens, and he's got a black dragon. Black dragons are the smartest, rarest, most selective dragons, which is perfect for a main character. And Jack is sitting there and he is so interested in this dragon, and it's like, babe, you are not narrating this book. You are clearly a villain. You are not getting this dragon. Don't even ask. And anyway, even though the black dragon is hanging around, he's not going to bond anyone. So his trauma is that the only rider he's ever had in his 100-year life was killed in the uprising. So his old rider tried to siphon energy to resurrect Brennan, but then he burned himself out and died. Bummer! Anyway, then Violet goes to fight class. Jack tells her he hopes she wins. Wow, he's turning over a new leaf. No, it's just so he can kill her. Killing Violet is his only goal in life, and I assume once he reaches it, he's just gonna die. And so then Violet looks at Xaden, and she's like, my heart does that damn stuttering thing again, as if he'd sent shadows straight through my ribs to squeeze the organ. But that's not the only organ she thinks about squeezing, am I right? So then Violet fights Orin. He tries to do some cool bull rushes at her, but then he barfs all over the map. And Violet wins! Yay! Then in a time skip, Violet keeps poisoning her opponents and winning. She wins 5 whole daggers, and she doesn't kill a single person. But then, Xaden. I will not die today. Violet Sorengale's personal addendum to the Book of Brennan. Xaden, who is over 6 feet tall if you were wondering, is here to challenge Violet. He's one of the best fighters, and he's allowed to kill her because she's not in his squad. He takes off all his weapons, but she stays armed. She throws a dagger at his, quote, ridiculously well-sculpted chest, but Xaden catches it and quickly disarms her. He whips out a new nickname for her, Violence. Do you get it? It's like how Violet sounds like violent. He's very clever. They grapple, and Xaden whispers to her, don't trust anyone. He also tells her he knows she's been poisoning people, but it means that she's not getting better at fighting. He ends up on top of her and sexily tells her where she should hit to kill. Later, Dane and Violet are talking in Dane's room. He's like, I think Xaden wants to kill you. And he sort of forgot that he's already had this conversation with her 100,000 times before. But don't worry, because Dane told Markham, the scribe guy, about all the threats Violet's been getting. And do you know what? Violet can still become a scribe. Yay! And Violet blows up at him. She is like, Dane, you do not believe in me. And Dane's like, I just want you to be safe. How many times? How many times do we have to have this talk? How many fucking times? So the next section is the gauntlet, which is American Ninja Warrior carved into the side of the mountain. I shit you not, they have to do this because dragons think it's cool when weak people die. That's literally it. Rhiannon, size 8 shoe, asks why they don't just start practicing right after parapet. And that is a good question, Rhiannon, but actually shut up. Because if they had done that, then we wouldn't have gotten Xaden pinning Violet, now would we? So I made the executive decision to skip through this section because I just didn't find it interesting at all. So basically, Violet is really bad at doing the gauntlet because she's so weak, and nobody can help her with the gauntlet because of the rules. And Dane obviously wants Violet to drop out, but Xaden actually really believes in her. Okay, and then right before the gauntlet, Dane is like, what changed between parapet and now? And Violet's like, me. Mic drop, chills, etc. So conveniently, Violet manages to make it through most of the gauntlet. And because she's the main character, literally everybody watches her run it. And then she comes up against this one obstacle that she's never made it past. And she uses a rope to scale it. And the ropes are supposed to be for if you fall. So it's like, can she do that? And then she runs up this big wall that curves upward and almost doesn't make it. And she stabs the wall with the dagger, and then she uses the leverage to fling herself to the top. The haters are mad. They do not like this. One hater specifically does not like this. Her name is Amber, and she's Third Wing's wing leader, and Dane used to doink her, and she is pissed. She says that it was cheating to use the rope and dagger, and so Violet should be disqualified and probably killed. But little does Amber know, she's picked a fight with rules lawyer Violet, who's like, a rider may only bring to the quadrant the items they can carry, and they shall not be separated from those items no matter what they may be. For once carried across the parapet, they are considered part of their person. Article 3, Section 6, Addendum B. So because Violet brought that knife with her across the parapet, legally it is her. And Amber's like, you think like a scribe. And it's not like written this way, but like, she says scribe, like it's a slur. And then Violet's like, I know, bitch. And everyone claps. So they immediately go to presentation afterwards. Everyone gets in line to go walk by the dragons and see if any of the dragons think they're cool. They have to walk at least 7 feet apart, or else they'll be burned if one of the dragons thinks they should die. Okay, so then we meet Luca. Luca is one of Violet's squad mates. Her only personality trait is that she's a bitch, and she basically only exists for this chapter. I cut a lot of characters out of this story just to keep this as short as I thought people would actually click on it. But Luca I kept because I think she plays a really important role in the storytelling, and I'll get to why. Luca says that she's heard that there's a Feathertail this year, and nobody knows anything about Feathertails, so that makes them a bonus dragon, and therefore very special. But it's also it's nothing to worry about, because Feathertails don't bond with people. Maybe I should have never even brought up Feathertails, because they're definitely not going to bond with a very special person we know and love. So then it's Violet's squad's turn to walk through the dragons. And after they pass most of the dragons, they see it. They see the Feathertail. And the Feathertail is this small golden dragon with a feathery tail. And so then there's this guy Tynan, and he's also a hater. And he and Luca are like, wow, look at that dragon. It's so tiny and dumb and weak, and it sucks really bad. Hey, Violet, you should bond the Feathertail because you're also tiny and dumb and weak, and you suck really bad. Anyways, so then Violet's like, it could be worse. What if it was a wyvern? And the thing you need to know about this universe is that literally everybody thinks that wyvern are made up. This would be if you're a cop on duty, and you see this person who's gotten way fucked up, and then your partner's like, well, do you think it was werewolves? Stop reading those goddamn books and start shooting a gun. That's what he would say. And then Violet doesn't pick up on this. She doesn't pick up on how weird it is, or maybe she just keeps digging. I can't really tell. And she's like, yeah, wyvern, they're like dragons, but they have 2 legs instead of 4, and they have razor sharp feathers, and they eat people. But Rihanna in size 8 shoe, she's a great friend. And she's like, my mom used to tell me that if we were bad, we would be eaten by a wyvern, and their venom riders would take us prisoner if we were bad. Did you hear that word? Venin. Yes, that's a new word. That is also a fictional creature in universe. Venin are Halloween monsters, basically, and they can channel magic directly from the source, aka Earth. I guess they do this evilly. I'm sure we'll learn more about Venin later, but this is our first taste. Anyways, we may never know when the Lord will come for us, and one of Violet's squad mates gets cooked in front of her. And then these 2 green dragons step out, and then the greens start aggressively sniffing her ribs because she is still wearing that dragon scale armor that Mira made her, and she made it out of her dragon scales, and she has a green dragon. And so she's like, oh my god, do you know Mira? I'm her sister. And the dragons think that's so cool. They love networking. And so they don't eat her. So then Luca is like, I thought they were going to eat you. You're our weakest link. And then the dragons straight up burn her alive. And so this is kind of when we get to what I think Luca's point in the story was. Luca exists to show that anybody who hates Violet can and should die. And I'm kind of not making that up. I don't think that Violet has a single enemy in this book who doesn't die. Spoiler alert. It's not even somebody gets the better of her and lives. No, it's if you cross Violet, you will die. Hey guys, it's October 1st. You know what that means? threshing. Threshing is when they actually go and get dragons. All of the students have to go out on their own. I think the in-universe version is like, well, then the dragon can see and assess you and not you and your friend. But like the reality is like it's better for the plot. Violet looks over and she sees Jack Barlow and she sees his Barlow boys. Tynan, you recall he was the dick from last chapter, and Orin, who was poisoned by Violet. Jack Barlow is worried that the reader may have forgotten his only point in the story, and so he reiterates that he wants to kill Violet. So a few hours later, Violet's been walking around. She's seen a few dragons. None of them are her dragon. She just knows, don't ask how. Okay, then she climbs up a tree. And she doesn't see any dragons that interest her, but you know what she does see? She sees the Feathertail. And when she climbs down, who does she see? Barlow boys. So the Barlow boys say that they're going to, quote, hunt the freak down. I don't really know what their strategy is here. So Violet has to save the Feathertail. She knows a main character when she sees one, and main characters do not leave each other hanging. So she beats them to the clearing, but on the way she trips and her ankle pops. And she sees the Feathertail and she tries to get it to leave. And she's like, go on, get. But either it doesn't speak English or it doesn't give a shit. And also, like, it doesn't have claws, it has paws, so it will not be fighting today. Thank you. And then the Barlow boys show up. And the dragon doesn't fly away, and it doesn't burn them. And it's going to die, and for what? The crime of being small and beautiful and weak, just like Violet? So Violet steps out to protect the dragon. You won't be hurting this dragon today. And Jack just laughs at her. She's like, you can't kill a dragon. That's against what we believe in. And then Jack just says, like, letting something weak live is against what we believe in. And then suddenly they hear a voice. I would strongly recommend you rethink your actions. Who said that? Who said that? Oh my God. It's Xaden. So, according to the rules, Xaden can watch, but he cannot interfere. And also, Jack doesn't want to rethink his actions. He wants to murder. The Barlow boys attack. Jack charges at them, and Violet throws a knife into his shoulder. She also throws a dagger at Tynan and hits him in the thigh. Orin tries to punch him and she cuts his ribs. He tries to stab her, but Mir's armor deflects him. Jack runs off like the pussy bitch he is. Orin and Tynan try to fight her, but Xaden is acting as a backup and telling her where they're coming from. And Scale is also there and she's pissed. She's always pissed, but she's there and pissed. Violet thinks she's going to die, and then Xaden steps forward like he's going to interfere. But then there's a big gust of wind and everything gets shady. And it's like, the black dragon has appeared. And then it tells her in her head to step aside. So she does. And then he burns Tynan to death. And he's like, kill Orin. And she's like, I won't do it. My heart's too pure. So Xaden and Scale leave. The black dragon tells her, hey, buckle up, bitch. We're going. He's picking her. And then the gold dragon just kind of flies off. So she climbs onto the dragon and then she has her kind of like millennial writing moment. Ha! Holy shit! I'm on the back of a dragon. And then the dragon tells her his name is Ternianok, but she can call him Tern. And he flies away, but she can't hold on. And then she falls and she dies. And that's it. That's the book. Thanks for coming, everyone. Bye-bye. Kidding, 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 jokes, jokes. She really did fall and Tern caught her. And he says, I know exactly who and what you are, Violet Sorengale. Main character. She's actually not strong enough to hold on, and so Tern has to use his dragon magic to keep her in place. Violet considers this to be like very embarrassing, which is like weird because it's like, girl, you have not ridden a dragon before. But anyways, he holds her in place as he does some like cool stunts and shows off like how cool and badass he is. So as they're flying back, Violet's like, why did you pick me? And Tern's like, because you saved the gold dragon. And Violet's like, even though I'm not strong. And like Tern basically rolls his eyes at her. No, silly Billy. He picked her because she's the smartest person who ever lived. So Tern, Violet, and the gold dragon land, and it turns out that Violet can hear the gold dragon in her head too. So everybody thinks she's so badass with her cool giant black dragon, including Violet's mom and General Melgren, who are just sort of there to watch threshing. So Violet goes to the roll call and she tells them Tern's name. But then she hears the golden dragon's voice. Her name is Andarna Aram. She goes by Andarna, and we will be using that name exclusively. Thank you. The two dragons peer pressure her into saying both names, and she does. That's right. Violet got 2 dragons, and now everyone knows. Everyone is so mad. Also, Jack survived. He got an orange dragon named Bade. Apparently his dragon is kind of small, which is like so embarrassing. So then Violet asks Professor Cowrie, you may recall him as the dragon professor, and she's like, oh my god, has anybody ever bonded 2 dragons before? Guess what, guys? They haven't. No, Violet is the first. And the generals are mad, but it isn't up to them. So the dragons actually have to decide if it's fine or not at the Empyrean, which is like Dragon Congress or Dragon City Council. Okay, so Taryn and Andarna have to go to the Empyrean. But before they go, Taryn tells her to stay close to Xaden. And she looks around and she sees Xaden, and this is like no joke what he is described as doing. I glance around and spot Xaden standing across the field, his arms crossed and legs spread as he stares at Taryn. Like Taryn sees this freak and he's like, yeah, that guy, he protect you. He'd protect you. So then Violet meets up with her squad. She lets everybody know that Tynan died. They don't really care. But then Dane shows up to ruin the party. So he takes Violet aside and he's like, you have to pick between the 2 dragons. The audacity of this man. Violet says, no, obviously, but he insists. He's like, you have to. And you have to pick Andarna because Andarna is too small to ride. And then maybe you could just be a professor then. And then you would be safe. Would you like that, perhaps? Okay, so in Dane's defense, this is like one time where it's not like entirely about safety. Taryn, turns out, is mated with Scale. So mated dragons have to be near their mates. Like they will literally get sick with that thing that JFK had if they're not around them. So their riders always are stationed together. And Violet's like, hey, speaking of Xaden, he actually showed up at threshing. And Dane is like, wow, this was all according to Xaden's plan. And Xaden's like, what plan, bitch? That's right, Xaden is right here. Violet is palpably aroused. Dane accuses him of manipulating threshing, which I'm sure is against the rules. And then Violet, the smartest person who was ever born, thinks, wait, if Xaden wanted to kill me, wouldn't he have done it already? And also our dragons are mates, so he's definitely not gonna kill me now. And then Xaden tells Dane, dude, Scale told me what was going on because the gold dragon is her favorite. Also, he does not want to be tied to Violet, and Violet feels the same, which is a huge clue that they're going to join later. And then Xaden points out that by being there, he could have saved Violet's life if it came to that. And Dane doesn't outright say it, but it's clear to everybody that Dane absolutely would have let her die if the rules said so. And then Dane just kind of fucks off a little bit. And then Xaden is like, hey, by the way, our lives are intertwined now. So if you die, I might die, maybe. Okay, so there's this whole theory in universe where if mated dragons riders, if one of them dies, then the other will die. But even in the book, it's not really confirmed. It's just kind of this could happen. Also, Violet's definitely going to be a target now because people are definitely going to want to kill her because then maybe Taryn will want to bond with them. Hey everyone, dragons are back. So General Melgren tells everybody the verdict. He's like, there has never been a case of 2 dragons selecting the same rider, and therefore there is no dragon law against it.
He's right. Ain't no rules in the dog can't play basketball.
It's Airbud rules. It's fucking Airbud rules over here. Violet gets to keep her 2 dragons, and then Dane shows back up, and he's happy for her getting to keep both dragons, which is a total 180 from where he was 3 pages ago. So with that, threshing is officially done, and then Violet feels like her back is on fire. The dragons have given her a cool magic tattoo. So this cool tattoo is called a relic. Everyone's is different. It's on a different part of their body. They all seem to be a dragon, though. And then Dane's like, hey, I would do anything to save you, right? And Violet's like, no, you fucking wouldn't. And so then he kisses her on the lips, and she is totally disappointed. So news travels fast around Basgiath. In the morning after threshing, Rhiannon is like, hey, Dane, kiss? And Violet's like, no, I just felt dead inside. So everything has changed at Basquiat. People are suddenly like really scared of Violet. And at breakfast, Imogen and Quinn, who are both second years, sit with them. So Imogen is going to start training Violet because Xaden told her to. Also, they're just sort of over the whole arm ripping thing. Like, that is old beef and honey, it is rotting. Dane shows up and he's like, hey, Violet, we're such good friends, but like, we definitely shouldn't have kissed, right? She's like, yeah, like we had like no chemistry. And he's like, haha, no, not that. It's actually because of the rules. Violet's job is no longer breakfast. She has been assigned to the archives. Her new job is to fetch books and just kind of hang out with the scribes. The scribes, if you're wondering, are also color-coded. They wear hooded cream-colored robes. At the archives, Violet gets to hang out with her friend Xtina, who is a scribe in training. And I thought she kind of spawned into existence in this chapter, but apparently they go way back. So Violet signs with her because Xtina is deaf. So anytime I'm like, Xtina said or Violet said, like they're like signing. So Violet requests some books for people. And then she thinks, hey, remember that cool book of fairy tales that Mira wouldn't let me bring to school? The one about the wyvern and the venom, the fictional creatures? I think I'd like to read that. So she asks Xtina for a copy. Xtina has never heard of it. But she looks for it anyway and she can't find it. And it's weird because it's almost like the book doesn't exist at all, which is crazy because the archives has a copy of pretty much any book that's ever been written. And now that Violet's thinking about it, she's like, I don't remember ever seeing any books about venom or wyvern. Weird. Anyway, back to the grind. And like I say that, but that is like basically the way that these plot points are handed down. It's just like, huh, that's weird. Okay. At lunch, Violet learns that some of the cadets' signets are manifesting. And also, we learn about a cool new way to die. It turns out that if cadets don't manifest a signet after like 6 months, then the magic that the dragons channel into them will just kill them. Then later, she goes flying with Taryn. She has another fight with Dane. She finally realizes that he doesn't believe in her, even though she has 2 dragons. It's like, girl, we've been saying this. They can't fight for very long because she just sort of sees this guy like randomly screaming and he's just like, make it stop! Make it stop! And he's just like pointing people. He's pointing people and he's like reading their mind. He reads Dane's mind. Oh, he just wants to keep Violet safe. Okay, whatever. Anyways, turns out this guy is an intrinsic. An intrinsic is a fancy word for mind readers. And then Professor Carr, who teaches dragon magic class, just comes up behind him and breaks his neck. If you're a mind reader, that's one of the signets that means you don't get to live. Cut 2, Violet is having a dream where her dad is trying to sell her on scribery. He's like, hey, like scribes actually have all the real power because they decide what's recorded. That is a cope if I have ever heard one because he didn't have a flying nuke. So what does he know? Turns like that's enough of that and he wakes her up. I mean, that's not actually the reason. He wakes her up because there are 7 unbonded cadets and they are all trying to kill her so that they can take her dragon. Violet manages to throw a knife at one of them and wounds them, but there are too many of them. One of the assailants is Orin. He tries to strangle her. As Violet thinks she's going to die, her door breaks open and everyone just freezes except for Violet. And Darna has revealed her gift. So Violet's able to move out of danger, and then she sees Xaden at the door. He's mad and ready to kill. I'm mad and ready to kill. Time resumes, and Xaden kills them off. Garrick and Bodhi show up right after them. Bodhi is actually Xaden's cousin. Violet describes him as looking like a, quote, softer, more approachable version of his older cousin. But my body doesn't heat at the sight of him the same way it does around Xaden. Hey, Violet, how do you tell Bodhi and Xaden apart? Oh, well, my body doesn't heat at Bodhi. Fucking vile. So Garrick and Bodhi clean up the bodies. Taryn in her head is like, you have to trust Xaden. And she does. So she's like, hey, I survived because of this cool dragon scale armor. And then Xaden sees the handprint on her throat. And then they have one of those like sexually charged conversations that's just going to litter the rest of this book. So get ready for it. I should have killed him slower. I'm fine. I'm not. Never lie to me. Also, Violet and Xaden leave, and as they walk, they bicker, and then Violet thinks, not that I wouldn't climb the man like a tree if presented with the right set of circumstances. I cringe, me too, as we make it to the main hallway of the dormitory. There will never, ever be a right set of circumstances when it comes to him, let alone right after he's executed half a dozen people. And also, him rescuing her was kind of hot. Xaden leads her into a secret tunnel, which is a beautiful literary parallel of how she wants to lead him into her secret tunnel. But in this case, he's taking her to where Taryn is. So Taryn, Scale, and Andarna are all just sort of sitting there hanging out in some area. I don't know, it's really vague. Xaden demands to know what powers Taryn is channeling into Violet. And Taryn is like, Nanya? Of course, he says that in her head, as dragons do. And so Violet starts to speak for him. And Xaden is like, I heard him. And Violet's like, what? But then she hears Scale in her head, too. They can all talk to each other in their heads because Taryn and Scale are mates. Yeah, and Andarna and Xaden can't talk to each other because there's no mating thing there. Andarna reveals that she gave her power to Violet because she's a Feathertail, and Feathertails can gift their power to humans, which is different from a Signet because reasons. She also reveals that Feathertails are hatchling dragons. She is only 2 years old. And she is not Scale and Taryn's child, if you were wondering. Her parents actually died before she hatched because she is tragic and she is beautiful. So that's why Feathertails don't bond. Gifting their power is way too unpredictable, and it would be really easy for a rider to just drain them of all of their power and burn them out. Obviously, Violet would never do that, but it could happen. And that's also why it's so important that nobody tells anybody what Andarna is, because then people might hunt her down and try to steal her very good powers. She also reveals that she did not freeze Violet's attackers. She actually stopped time for 30 seconds. And this blows Xaden's mind. And when I first read this, to me, this was like not really like a reveal. Because it's like when you read it and it's like, oh, everybody stops and Xaden stops. I don't know, like I just sort of was like, yeah, time's definitely stopping. That's what happened. And then in this scene, she's like, no, I actually stopped time. I didn't just freeze them. And I was kind of like, yeah, I know. I read that. I read that part. Now that little exposition dump is done, Violet tells Xaden as they're leaving, hey, actually, the dragonless cadets, they didn't act alone. There was actually a rider outside of her room who let the cadets in. Xaden demands to know who, and Violet tells him off-page for dramatic effect. So today, it's time for Dead Person Roll Call, and Oren Seifert's name gets read alongside the 6 literal who's. And that's something that I have been like leaving out of this whole like book and this whole recap, is that every day they do this little reading of the names of the people who died. It just like doesn't matter. Like 1, it doesn't move the plot along. 2, none of the characters are people we give even a semblance of a shit about. I don't even really like know why it's there other than to just be like, people are dying all around us. Okay, but like we knew that. We knew they were dying. We knew that death was imminent. We knew that death was coming for all of these people. And so I feel like the emotional like weight of it all is just not there. So I cut it. So if you do end up reading this book, you're going to be like, oh, Dead Person Roll Call. That's in there a lot more than I expected. Then Xaden shows up and Violet observes him hornily. She realizes that the reason she hasn't wanted to doink anyone is because she's attracted to Xaden. Wow. This is the smartest character in the whole book, and her loins are an inscrutable puzzle. So then Xaden announces that they're going to kick some random guy we've never heard of out of the squad. He will be replaced by Liam Mary, who is also from Tyrrendor. Liam is the strongest first-year cadet, and he got the best time on the gauntlet. He's a huge dude, and obviously he's been put here to be Violet's bodyguard. Xaden has actually assigned him to be everywhere that Violet is, including sleeping in the room next to hers. And apparently, like, everyone knows that this is because their dragons are mates. And when I say everybody, like I do mean everybody. Or at least like Dane knows that. Violet doesn't like this at all because she seems to have forgotten that 7 people tried to murder her last night. So then Dane sees the handprint on her neck and he's obviously worried. And Violet's like, oh my god, Dane, oh stop, I'm fine. But Dane is more upset that Violet didn't tell him that someone tried to kill her. But it's like, Dane, like, when would she have had time to do that? When would she have time to tell you that? So Commandant Panchek rolls up and he has a copy of the Codex. Embarrassing for him that he hasn't memorized it. Panchek is here to address a serious Codex issue, but Violet and her friends are just talking about who's sleeping with who, and then Violet says, I miss sex. And she says this out loud. Then Xaden takes the stage and tells everyone that Violet was illegally attacked. He tells everybody what happened and reveals that a rider let them into Violet's room. And who was that rider? None other than wing leader Amber Mavis. Gasp, gasp. But also, like, who? This is the girl who got mad that Violet bent the rules way back at the gauntlet. And this is the one that Dane used to doink. Dane does not want to believe it. He thinks that Xaden's lying, and Violet should just tell everybody that. And, like, she was there. They'll believe her. And then he gets mad that she won't do it. And then he demands to put his grubby little hands on her and confirm that Amber wasn't there. But Violet won't let him. She can't. She has to protect Andarna. And also, how dare he? Taryn and the other dragons arrive at the courtyard. She asks Taryn to share her memories with everybody, and he does. Dane gets the memory and realizes, hey, Violet wasn't lying. And Violet is pissed at Dane, her alleged bestie, for not believing her. Everyone finds Amber guilty and she's sentenced to die immediately. Still, Violet asks Xaden to let her live, and it's like, what? This girl. But Xaden is not so stupid, and he and Taryn are like, no, we're killing her. Taryn burns her alive, and Amber's dragon cries. And that's it. That's it for Amber. We skip to later, and Violet's pretty much over the whole Amber thing. She's doing her little library job, and Liam's with her. That will be the norm from now on. But Violet actually enjoys Liam's company. He's a big, sweet boy who enjoys carving little figurines. And through spending time with Liam and Xaden and the other marked ones, she realizes, hey, people don't like these guys, and they're honestly pretty shitty to them. Is this bigotry? But she also realizes that she hated Xaden on sight, so maybe she's no better. And Liam is like, yeah, women either hate him or want to fuck him. Xaden and Liam are like stepbrothers. Violet realizes, wait, Liam actually knows Xaden, like IRL. So Xaden actually taught him how to fight when they were both fostered by a duke in Tirvain after the rebellion. And Tirvain is not on the map, so I have no idea where it is. Liam explains that all of the rebel children were allowed to live under the condition that they go through the Riders Quadrant where they might die. This was already explained to Violet in Chapter 1, but Liam doesn't know that. There are 107 marked ones. Xaden is the oldest and therefore the leader. And Violet asks Liam how he can guard someone whose mother oversaw their family's deaths. And Liam is like, your survival is vital to Xaden. I owe Xaden everything. As Violet and Liam leave the library, Violet drops one of the scribed scrolls, which unrolls. It is not marked classified, and Violet notes that several times. Somerton, a town on the southern border, was attacked, and it was a high-altitude attack, so if you remember Violet's geek out back in the first section, griffins can't survive high altitudes. Also, a supply convoy was looted, which is weird because Navari and Poromiel have a trade agreement. So Violet and Liam file this information away for later. So then it's time for battle brief, and Liam and Violet expect to get a rundown about Somerton. Violet whips out her notebook, and you know she's writing Somerton in those big block letters all the cool girls write their notes in. But instead, Professor Markham is like, wow, nothing's happening in the war today. Let's talk about history. History is what we will talk about instead. And Liam and Violet are absolutely befuddled. Fast forward to December, and still nobody's mentioned Somerton. Violet wonders, if they could censor that, what else isn't making it to battle brief? Also, all of the other writers are channeling, but Violet isn't. So channeling is not a signet. Channeling is just the dragon sending magic into the writer. And Taryn says that she's not ready. Like, she and Rhiannon are training, and Garrick and Xaden are fighting shirtless. Violet is practically salivating. Like, it is insane that she can even stand. You'd think she would be slipping and sliding all over the place. Xaden is annoyed with her for not wearing her armor during sparring, and Violet notices that Xaden has a bunch of scars on his back that he's never mentioned to her. But it's like, why would he? And when would he have told her that? So everybody, and when I say everyone, like, I do mean everyone. Like, Violet and Xaden are the main characters not only of this book, but of this universe. Everybody knows that Xaden won't kill her. But she's like, he could still hurt me. And it's like, this is supposed to be the smartest person to ever work a brain cell, and she thinks that the guy who gave her a bodyguard is going to hurt her. So Xaden and Violet banter, and Taryn decides that because she didn't get super mad at Xaden, she is ready to channel. And apparently that was just like all it took. And just for the record, like, it is this awkward and random, like, in the book. Like, Taryn is just like, you're ready. And then we just break on to the next scene. Later, Violet's in her room and she is a prisoner of her own sexual frustration. Suddenly, energy shoots down her spine, and the energy is just flowing through her. And she tries to reach Taryn, but he doesn't respond to her. And she is dangerously, irresponsibly horny. She knows this must be Taryn's emotions. He and Scale must be fucking. So she runs outside to the courtyard, and there she finds Xaden, who's smoking churum, which is basically weed. He is also trying to dissociate from Taryn and Scale's sexual congress. Xaden offers to help her learn how to shield out Taryn and Scale. And Violet's like, wow, this guy's finally going to help me. Did you forget about him killing 7 people who were going to kill you? Did you forget about him giving you a bodyguard? But he asks her to say please, and that leads to this awful line. I smile sweetly up at him and inch a little closer. Would you pretty please teach me how to shield before I accidentally climb you like a tree and we both end up with regrets? Just for the record, Violet has climbed a literal tree in the book as many times as she has threatened to climb a sex tree. So Xaden talks her through how to navigate her mind palace and shut her mental doors on Tairn and Scale. She does it on the first try. Apparently, it took Xaden weeks to learn how to do that. And then he strokes her face and the sexual tension is palpable. They start making out. But Xaden pulls back. He's like, "This isn't you. This is your dragon." He tells her to go, and she goes. The next day, Liam gives Violet a carving of Tairn he made because he's the sweetest boy. He's trying to carve all of his friends' dragons because he is too pure for this world. So then Dan rolls up and he's like, "Hey, Violet, remember how 2 months ago you let Tairn share your memory with everyone instead of just showing me?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, I'm still mad about it. That sucks, and you should have told me about the attack when it happened." This is also the first time they've talked since then. I guess he was just stewing on it for the last 2 months. And Violet's like, "You didn't ask me for my memory. He just wanted to take it." Even if she had told him, like, he wasn't going to believe her. Violet's like, "I was so worried that the writer's quadrant would show that I'm weak. But really, I'm meant to be a writer. And Dane, you can't hold me back." Dane's like, "I have a higher security clearance because of my signet. And I know that Xaden has secrets." And it's like, we all know Dane. His name starts with an X. Of course he has secrets. Violet's like, "I don't know if you were trying to get me to leave to keep me away from Xaden or because you didn't think I could make it. But it doesn't matter because I have 2 cool dragons to back me up." And he accepts that. Fast forward to January. Violet's signet still hasn't manifested. Also, Jack's back and he's finally going to challenge her. So she knows that he's going to kill her because that's all he talks about. That's all he's ever wanted in life. But Violet has a plan. So leading up to the fight, Liam's like, "I gotta tap in Xaden." And Violet's like, "No, you don't." He's just kind of like, "Okay." So then when the fight happens, Violet's like, "Okay, Liam, you can go get Xaden." But she knows that he can't get there in time. Jack and Violet fight. Violet draws first blood. She wants to get him mad. He gets on the ground and tries to stab her in the heart, but deflected by the dragon skin vest. Violet kicks him in the balls and tells him to give up. It is always the balls with her and Jack. Obviously, he doesn't. He throws his dagger at her, which is against the rules, grabs her face, and he forces his power into her. And she's like, "I'm being shocked." And she has just enough strength to whip out a vial and shove it into his mouth. Fuck his hand. And then he drops her as his throat closes up. Turns out that he is allergic to oranges, and she knew it because he never put oranges on his plate. So she notices that he doesn't get oranges maybe a few pages before this, and it's like, she doesn't even say that he doesn't get oranges. She's just like, "Oh, I saw something wasn't on his plate." But you don't really know. He could just not like oranges. This was a very strange gamble, and it's treated like, oh, Violet was so smart, and not like he might not have gotten poisoned. He might have just been like, "Oh, this is a fruit I don't care for," and that wouldn't have saved her life. Violet passes out victoriously. Later, Xaden decides that he's going to take a more active role in helping Violet. So he has a bunch of fancy knives that he's going to give to her. They're engraved with Tirish knots, which are runes, which we do not learn about until the second book, I believe. He had them all specially made for her in a platonic way. But she has to win them in a challenge. It's not a real challenge. She's not going to fight Xaden. Instead, she and Xaden roll around the mat hornily, and she's like, "Dagger, that's mine now." Okay, that's it for January. Now it's time for February. It's time for Squad Battle, which is another contrived event, just like the Gauntlet was. There were some other trials before this. We learned nothing about them. They all happened off page. Now it's time for the last task. Whoever wins this one wins the Squad Battle. Yay! Everyone important is off somewhere else. Where are they? Each squad needs to find the one thing that would be the most advantageous to their enemies about the war effort. If our gang wins this, they would get first place. And if they win, they get the grand prize. Combat front lines. Wow! Yay! People used to have to get drafted for a prize that good. Violet's the brains of the operation. And she suggests that they break into Lilith's office. They do. Violet sees another one of those Tirish daggers that Xaden had made on her desk. She snoops through her mom's stuff, and she finds a letter from a major out in Athabine, which is a border town. The major is begging for reinforcements. Athabine has been attacked multiple times, and the situation is dire. Violet also sees a map on the wall. It has all of Navari's battlements, outposts, and supply routes marked. Obviously, they steal the map. And when they present the map to everybody, the room goes crazy. And Xaden tips his imaginary hat to her, and she knows that not only has she won the squad battle, she's won Xaden's respect. And they immediately go to an outpost in Montserrat. Dane's here, Xaden isn't. Violet and the gang are joking around, they're having a good time, they're not taking war super seriously. Dane's being a killjoy, and Violet hates it. She's like, I could lie to him, but that would make our semi-truce even more awkward. I was just remembering the guy I used to climb trees with. That's all. Violet, you have like a 50-50 track record of tree climbing being sexual. What were you doing, girl? Rhiannon's village is nearby, and she desperately wants to visit, even though it's against the rules. Mira, Violet's sister, is there, and she is so proud that Violet has made it this far. She's a good sister because she knows when you have to say, fuck the rules. So Rhiannon and Violet try to sneak out of the fortress to see Rhiannon's family, and Mira's like, oh, sweet, I'll come too. Dane would literally never. The three of them are at Violet's family home. Rhiannon's hanging out with her sister, who just had a baby, and Violet and Mira are off talking. Mira was wounded by a griffin rider near Cranston, which is another border town. And Violet's like, whoa, there's a lot more going on the borders than we learn about in Battle Brief. And Mira's like, yeah, the borders are being attacked so often, they'd have to do Battle Brief like all the time to cover it. And then Mira drops something juicy. She thinks that she saw a riot of dragons across the border. That's weird. Only Navarre has dragons. And nobody's ever mentioned dragons at Battle Brief, have they? Fishy. Mira reveals that she took Violet's copy of the Book of Fairy Tales. You know, the one they didn't have a copy of in the archives. The one about the wyvern and the venom. Mira didn't read it. No, Violet's actually the only dragon rider who knows how to read. And she gives it to Violet, and Violet's like, oh my god. Finally, something fun. Finally, Violet's like, hey, have you ever been stationed with any riders of mated pairs? Like, how long can they be separated? And then Xaden says, turns out about 3 days is their max. So Xaden and Scale flew here because Scale just couldn't bear to be apart from Taryn. About a day after Xaden gets there, Dane and Xaden are tense. Also, Mira doesn't trust Xaden, even though earlier Violet told her that Xaden was the one she trusts most. Violet kind of goes back and forth on that. Mira holds her own kind of battle brief, even though Professor Devra is presumably there and could do it herself. She asks them to figure out how their squad might defend the keep. And Violet realizes that next year, people are finally going to be serving with marked ones, and people don't like them. She wonders if maybe they're going to get, killed by their fellow Navarrians. Mira asks them, who's going to be in command? And Dane's like, I will be, obviously. But Liam's like, isn't Xaden here? Wouldn't it be him? And Xaden's like, no, it's cool. Just pretend I'm not here. Give Dane the position that he wants so bad. And Violet's like, don't be a dick. And then in her head, Xaden says, you haven't even seen me start to be a dick. What the fuck? So it turns out that Taryn, Scale, Xaden, and Violet are all linked. We did sort of already know this because Violet's talked to Scale before, but this is the first time that Xaden's talked to her. And Violet can't even concentrate on this whole battle brief thing because Xaden keeps flirting with her in her head. She does not know how to talk back. And also because Xaden and Dane keep sniping at each other. One of the riders down the table whistles low. Do you boys just want to whip it out and measure? It'd be faster. After the brief, Mira dismisses everybody but Dane, Xaden, and Violet, and she is mad. She's like, Dane, I'm sorry that you're mad that Violet and Xaden's dragons are mates, but you're fucking up the squad. Go home. She doesn't tell him to go home, but she's thinking it. We're all thinking it. And then she looks at Xaden and she's like, how fucking dare you? If my sister misses her training because she is flying back and forth so that Taryn and Scale can fuck, I swear to God. And Xaden's like, look, Mira, I'm here, okay? I'm here. I left my shit so I could be here. We will figure this out. Suddenly, the dragons tell their riders that griffins are headed towards them, and the wards are down. Xaden and Violet need to go, but Violet wants to stay and help and fight. Luckily, Xaden is not stupid. He drags Violet out of the fortress. Everybody else from the squad is gone, but he kisses her, and he tells her that she has to leave. For him. And then Taryn flies in and grabs her and carries her away. And as they fly away, griffins overtake the keep. Back at Basgiath, Violet's hanging out by herself outside Professor Markham's office. She hasn't been able to sleep since the attack, and Xaden meets up with her. Violet is determined to learn how to speak into his head. She enters her mind palace, and there she sees a shadow of sparkling night. It's her connection to Xaden. Professor Markham shows up, and he lets her know that Mira did survive. There were no deaths at Montserrat. So Dane hugs Violet as she cries, and once she steps away from him, Xaden's gone. Later, Violet realizes that she actually wants to know more about Xaden. So throughout the day, she's just talking to him in her mind. She's like, "Do you have siblings?"
No.
"What's your favorite food?"
Chocolate cake.
"What are the scars on your back from?"
I don't want to tell.
Mysterious. And now it's time for war games. It's May now, and the school year is almost over. And then the gang is standing in the field wondering what the first war game is going to be. And Violet decides she's just going to ask Xaden in his mind. But you know what? He's busy. And Violet's like, "Oh, am I distracting you?" And then she says to herself, she's like, "Am I flirting? Maybe. Do I care? No." So they're going to do a kind of capture the flag sort of thing. First wing is guarding a dragon egg in the mountains, and fourth wing is going to try to capture it. Fourth wing will also be defending a flag, which our hashtag squad will be carrying. And when the gang gets to the flight field, they notice that Taryn is wearing a little saddle. Now, obviously, we don't really know what the other dragons think about this, but I'm kind of wondering, like, do they see this as, like, BDSM garb? Or are they kind of like, oh, this is like a little child leash? So Xaden shows up, and he actually had that saddle specially made for Taryn, and he put it on Taryn himself. And Violet's like, "No, oh my god, I can't wear the saddle. Then everybody's gonna know I can't stay on Taryn." And Xaden's like, "Sweetie, everybody already knows that." And Darna also wants to come to battle. And Violet's like, "Okay, you can come, but you have to roll in mud so that you cover up your beautiful gold scales." So she's there. And then war game starts. And finally, Violet can fly. And she's not afraid of falling. And right on time, she feels the power flowing through her veins. Is today going to be the day that the stored up power will burn her up and kill her? They do real fake battle. Taryn smacks down a dragon who had the audacity to challenge him. Easy, like swatting flies. As Violet and Taryn fly, Violet sees the egg. Not so fast. The members of First Wing are barely plot relevant except for one, Jack Barlow. Jack is on his dragon, Bade, and he's fighting Liam on his dragon, Day. He jumps onto Day's back and unsheathes his sword, pirate style. Then he stabs Liam, and Liam falls from his dragon. Violet's like, "Fuck this egg, I'm saving Liam." Taryn flies toward Liam, but he's not fast enough, so Violet whips out Andarna's power, freezes time, and Taryn is able to catch Liam. Don't worry, folks. Liam's not dying today. But Violet is pissed. Screw all those times she was too good and too pure and too beautiful to murder. Jack must die. As she and Taryn fly toward Jack, she is so mad, and the power is coursing through her. She gets closer and madder, and then finally, "I am the sky and the power of every storm that has ever been. I am infinite." A scream rips from my throat as lightning splits the sky with a terrifying crack of thunder. The bluish streak of silver death slams into the tower, and sparks flare as it explodes in a blast of stone. Taryn banks to avoid the blast, and I pivot in the saddle. But instead of zapping Jack like she wanted to, she hits the tower. But it's enough. Jack falls down the mountain and presumably dies in the process. And Taryn is such a proud dad, and he bestows a title upon her, Lightning Wielder. So, little fun fact, Taryn is actually Scottish Gaelic for thunder. They land on the flight field. They won! Yay! Garrett got the egg, Violet saved Liam, but she stupidly feels bad about having killed Jack. And she's like, "I finally got a signet, and I used it to kill." Despite bonding two murder lizards in the Dragon Air Force, she's like, "I didn't want to be a killer." And it's like, and then Dane comes over and he gives her head a little kiss. And he's like, "It's okay, my sweet, tiny, beautiful baby. You never have to kill again." To which Satan is just like, fuck right off. Because you know what? He thought it was cool that she killed Jack. And you know what? I do too. Because we were all tired of Jack, okay? Jack needed to go, and good fucking riddance. Satan asks Violet, "Was your signet lightning?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I thought so." And of course, his jaw flexes. So that's another thing that I've been filtering out over this book is like men's jaws are constantly flexing. They are constantly getting into flex offs with each other. They are twitching. They are ticking. Maybe I'm just normal, but it's like people's jaws do not move this much, right? Like, I don't even know how to get my jaw to tick. Like, I'm trying. I'm clenching. It's not working. I don't know. I might just be too beautiful and feminine. Oh my god, am I a main character? Rhiannon takes Violet back to Basquiat and she's like, you two have the weirdest relationship. And Violet's like, we're not in a relationship, which is exactly how you know they're in a relationship. And then Rhiannon's like, hey, how did Taryn fly so fast to get to Liam? And obviously Violet can't just like tell her the whole thing about Andarna because it's like she doesn't know how trustworthy she is. She's a size 8 shoe. That could mean a lot of things. And so she's just like, Taryn's just like really fast. And obviously Rhiannon believes her because Taryn is clearly the strongest and biggest dragon. Later, Violet's in her room throwing daggers at a little practice dummy, and she's moping about how she has been tragically burdened with all of this power. And then Xaden comes in. How does she know? That height, that hint of dark hair I catch in my peripheral vision, that incredible scent? I don't even need to look fully. My body tells me it's Xaden. This book is like full of writing quirks, and one that definitely gets worse, not only as the book, but as the series go on, is like the questions for things, that hype, that scent. And I don't know, I know I'm being kind of a bitch, but it's like every time I read it, it's like that's how I hear it in my head. Violet and Xaden are horny for each other, and she's like, why are you here? And he's like, because I can't stay away. And then they keep having these dumb little exchanges. She's like, what's wrong with me? Any other writer would be thrilled. And he's like, you've never been like any other writer. Xaden's like, I get it. You wanted your job to be book, and now it's murder. And she kisses him because, yes, he does get it. And so then we go back to these stupid little back and forths. This isn't what you want. It's exactly what I want. You said to do whatever I need. I'm the last thing you need. And then, they get to know each other biblically. My feet dangle off the desk and crashes before my stills again. His breath hot and wet against dusk, he swears. His mouth fused to mine, spearing his fingers through my hair. I take the fertility suppressant. This position is shit. I whimper with pure want. His jaw flexes. Fuck me, this hair. The fit, the stretch, and I smell smoke. Anyway, that's done. Violet accidentally set the curtains on fire, and they broke a lot of furniture. It's the Cullen honeymoon all over again. And as they're lying there, basking in their sex essence, she's like, tell me about your scars. Like, is now the fucking time? His jaw flexes as he looks over his shoulder. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't know what it's supposed to be. So Xaden has 107 scars on his back, one for each kid under the age of majority with the rebellion relic. So he made a deal. He took responsibility for making sure all 107 kids would be loyal to Navarre, and in return, they have the opportunity to fight for their life in the Riders Quadrant instead of being executed. And if any of those 107 kids betray Navarre, then Xaden will die. Violet's like, cool. Kind of a bummer, though. Violet doesn't really know what to say to that, so instead she's just like, why did you guess my special thing would be lightning? And Xaden's like, I felt it when you kissed me. I do enjoy the cheese when it happens. Like, this is highly cheesy. This is a very cheesy line. The romance novels are always cheesy, but it's like, I think it's just more of like telling people about it and telling you about it is just kind of like, I'm the little piece of bread in the fondue pot, okay? And I don't really like it. It feels weird, but you know what? Like, it's a little less cringy when you read it, but like, no, not by much. The next morning, Xaden's gone, but he did leave her violets. Professor Carr, who teaches dragon magic, is waiting for her in the hallway. He needs to make sure that she can actually control her lightning, for next time. And then they fly out to a mountaintop to go practice. So Violet's signet could cause her to overheat and burn out if she uses too much of it at once. That's what happened to Taryn's old rider. She only manages to shoot off about 5 lightning bolts before she's totally tuckered out. Also, she can't aim for shit. So later, she's back in her room and Xaden rolls up to help her clean up their sex mess. And then Becky is just like, hey, I'm about to give you a clue. Here you go. And then we get this really awkward foreshadowing where Violet's like, hey, remember last year when I found you in the courtyard? Where were you going? And Zayden's like, we went to Athabine. And Violet's like, oh, cool, thanks for telling me. And it really is that awkward and heavy-handed in the book. She might as well have just highlighted it bright pink and been like, foreshadowing. This is a clue. You'll need this clue later. I think that's really one of my biggest gripes with this book. The foreshadowing is so heavy-handed, and they're also just very awkward. Like, there will be things where it's like, this thing needed to happen, and now here it is. It happened. Yay. Okay, moving on. This is not going to be a series people pour over like Game of Thrones. Then Violet picks up that book of fairy tales that Mira gave her, and there's this little letter in there from her daddy. My Violet, by the time you find this, you'll be dead. Kidding. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. My Violet, by the time you find this, you'll most likely be in the scribe quadrant. Remember that folklore is passed from one generation to the next to teach us about our past. If we lose it, we lose the links to our past. It only takes one desperate generation to change history, even erase it. I know you'll make the right choice when the time comes. You have always been the best of both your mother and me. Love, Dad. That's sweet. And Zayden's like, oh, that's cryptic. And Violet's just like, yeah, he got really weird after Brennan died. Then she flips through the stories. The pages flutter as I flip through stories of an ancient kingdom that spanned from ocean to ocean, and a great war among three brothers who fought to control the magic in this mystical land. Some of the fables tell stories of the first riders who learned to bond with dragons and how those bonds could turn on the rider if they tried to consume too much power. Others talk of a great evil that spread across the land as man became corrupted by dark magic and turned into creatures known as Venin, who created flocks of winged creatures called Wyvern and scorched the land of all magic in the thirst for more power. Another talks about the dangers of wielding power from the ground instead of the skies, as one could easily start drawing magic from the earth and eventually be driven mad. And Zayden's like, what do you think he was trying to tell you? And Violet's like, I don't know, maybe he thought somebody in leadership was corrupt? Like maybe Melgren is a Venin, metaphorically? I've read the works of Cassandra Clare, and so I know that all of the stories are true. And so I know that every time there's folklore in a book, like that's just going to be the real thing. Stay tuned is all I'm saying. Anyway, now that all that info's been dropped, it's like, what now? Coitus? No. They actually have this whole conversation about how they're totally not going to fall for each other. And Zayden's like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to fall for you. Ha ha ha. And it's like, dude, you made her knives. You made her a dragon saddle. Nobody makes her jaw tick like you. Like, you're in it, dude. Anyways, nothing happens for another month, I guess. And then it's reunification day, which falls on July 1st. So in 10 days, Xaden will graduate, and Violet will learn how far away he's going to be sent. He'll probably get sent somewhere cool and strong and badass, just like him. It's also been 6 years since Brennan was killed. So Reunification Day actually celebrates the end of Xaden's dad's failed revolution. So you can imagine it's a little emotionally charged. And to celebrate, there's a special little Reunification Day ball. We gotta talk about what the girls are wearing. Violet is wearing a formal military uniform, but with a long skirt and a long slit. And that slit goes up. Violet, who recently discovered empathy, realizes that everybody's here in honor of celebrating the end of the rebellion. That's the thing that led to all of her friends' parents' deaths. Violet mingles, but you know she's not here for the side characters. And it's like, where is Xaden anyways? Well, he is sitting on the parapet like a certified emo boy. Bodhi and Garrick are there, not sitting with him. Garrick's like, you don't want to see him tonight. And Violet's like, yeah, well, I'm his situationship. And then she walks right out onto the parapet. But I see him sitting about a third of the way across the narrow stone bridge, staring up at the moon like it somehow adds to the burden he carries. And my heart fucking hurts. He had the lives of all 107 marked ones carved into his back, taking responsibility for them. But who takes responsibility? Takes care of him. I just want to say something because we talk about the parapet, and a parapet is not a little balance beam. A parapet is actually like a piece, it's a wall. Becky was like, I see that that's a word. I see that it has a definition. That is a suggestion to me. I learned that recently. I read this book twice and I just kind of assumed that she knew what she was talking about, but I was wrong, and so was she. I'm very sorry for all of the hurt and damage that I have caused. So he's mourning his dad, and also she realizes that she's in love with him. The last time I stood here, I was terrified, but the distance to the ground isn't what has my pulse pounding now. There's more than one way to fall. Shit. That ache in my chest burns brighter than the power coursing through my veins. Are you shocked? Are we shocked? Is this surprising to literally anybody? Anyway, Xaden sees her and he's like, "What are you doing, dummy? Turn around." He doesn't call her a dummy, but he should. She's being a dummy. Violet's like, "I know why you don't see a future for us. You want me, Xaden. You don't say it, but you show it." His jaw flexes in response. And Xaden's like, "No." And Violet's like, "Yes." Also, Xaden tells her that she's the smartest person he's ever met. Xaden's like, "If we're going to do this, we have to trust each other." And he does want this. "I've wanted you from the first second I saw you, Violence." Violet and Xaden leave the parapet and go back to the dorm. Violet decides that Xaden is going to take her to his room. But Xaden protests. Someone might find out about them. And one, they decided they were going to do that like a page ago. And two, literally, who is fooled at this point? Who? Xaden's room is twice as big as hers, with a bigger bed for bigger activities. She has him sit on the bed, and she's like, "I think I'm in love with you." And he's like, "You think or you know?" Because he's sitting, that's why. And she's like, "I know." And then it's time for another sex scene. Daggers, both his and mine, hit the ground as he unstraps the sheaths at my thighs and undoes his own. It's a glorious cacophony of metal until, sensitive bud, he absolutely devours me with tongue and teeth. Every expert stab of his tongue.
I appreciate that elevation to deity, but my name will do.
I don't get equal time to play. The pressure, the stretch, the fit. I'm not going to survive this. I'm gonna die right here in this bed.
Then I'm gonna die with you, he promises.
And we're both gonna die together. I'm gonna die holding you.
Thunder booms, shaking the paneled glass in Xaden. Violet also broke the window with her lightning. And then somebody knocks on the door while they're on round 5. It's Garrick. "Grab your flight leathers, and you'd better bring Sorengale with you, too. We're under attack." It's 4:15 a.m. The wards are falling. They get to formation. Violet's still in her dress uniform. Rhiannon notices that she's wearing Xaden's jacket. Xaden mind reads at her that it's actually just war games time. They're not really under attack. And I don't really know why he does this, because it really deflates things by the time that Commandant Panchek comes out and he's like, "Surprise! This is just what it would be like if we actually got attacked." Dane's dad is here and he's going to tell us what the scenario is. They will be doing a 5-day exercise. The wards are failing. There's a multi-level attack along the borders. Riders are dead. Mass casualties of civilian and infantry. The works. 4th Wing will be headed to the southeast, and each squad will pick which outpost they reinforce. Xaden has been assigned to set up a headquarters at Athabine, the place beyond the wards where he went to before, the one that was attacked and desperate for reinforcements. Dane's squad will be going to Eltival, a place you've never heard of before. Violet packs, grabs her knees, and heads out to the flight field. Tairn and Andarna are there. They'll both be going, even though it's far, because I did like this. Because Andarna has a little harness to keep her strapped to Tairn in case she can't keep up. I loved this. Xaden had it made for her, and I thought this was so cute. It's like she gets to come along in her own little sidecar. It's just precious. But Violet realizes that this means that Tairn and Scale will have to be apart for 5 whole days. Haha, joke's on her. Turns out Xaden's assembling a headquarters crew, and he wants Violet, Liam, and Imogen. And Dane's like, "No, you can't take her. She's a first year. Athabine is beyond the wards." Xaden's like, Liam's a first year, and you're not begging to keep him." Then Dane accuses him of trying to separate Violet from her mom so that he can kill her. If only he knew about the sex. "Please, do quit while you're behind, Atos," Xaden seethes. "You want the truth? She's a fuck of a lot safer with me beyond the wards than she is with you within them. We both know it. The look in his eyes is similar to the one in Scales, and it dawns on me why she chose him. They're both ruthless, both willing to annihilate whatever stands between them and what they want. And Dane is in Xaden's path. And Violet's like, no, I'll go. Like, if you want me to go, I'll go. And for some reason, like, this is the thing that makes Dane realize that Violet and Xaden have something. And Dane just sort of accepts it. And then he hugs her and he's like, bye-bye. Fast forward, they're flying to Athabine. Xaden has a squad of about 10 people and their dragons. They're outside the ward, so magic is wilder, whatever that means, and it's harder for their dragons to communicate. They stop at a lake near the outpost, and Xaden actually holds her hand in front of everybody, so they're like boyfriend, girlfriend now. And then they hear a woman's voice. Xaden whips out his shadows to cover Violet, but then the woman is like, haha, I saw her hair, I know that's General Sorengale's child, which is like so crazy to me because it's like there's no evidence that there are photos or portraits or anything of anybody really, but especially her, that like her enemies would have distributed to them. But apparently they not only know, but they have it memorized to the point that they're just like, here's this literal nobody who is our enemy's child. I don't know. Violet's panicking. But Xaden's like, you gotta stay calm. The women are griffin riders. The other cadets roll up, but nobody's reaching for a weapon. And Violet's like, I will absolutely zap you if I could aim for shit. But then Xaden stops her. He's like, you gotta trust me. And then Liam holds her back. And Xaden's like, you're early. What? Excuse me, what, early? Xaden says they don't have a full shipment, and Violet realizes, oh, he's been working with them to do crime. That's what he's been doing when he's been sneaking out of the quadrant. I am smart and he is evil. One of the male griffin riders reveals that he's been trying to warn them. They lost a village to a horde of Venin. Venin, the fictional monsters. Violet said I wasn't trying to warn her in metaphor form. He was like, no, there are Venin. They are real, Violet. Why didn't he just say? And so then when Xaden was like, what do you think he means by that? And she was like, oh, it's a metaphor. He knew. He knew the entire time. The Venin are headed towards Athabine. The Griffin Riders will be there. And Violet realizes that all of Xaden's crew has rebellion relics except for her. They are all traitors. And Taryn and Andarna knew what Xaden was doing. They just weren't going to say because Taryn wouldn't betray his mate. And Violet's like, was Dane right? Was Xaden playing me? Did I empathize with these fuckers for nothing? She asks Liam if he was ever really her friend. And he's like, yes, but I owe Xaden everything. I was like, oh, shut up. Betray your programming for 1 second. Xaden's like, you think I'm a traitor. And Violet's like, yes, very clearly, yes, you are working with our enemies. I see you. And Xaden's like, did you ever think we were on the right side of the war and now we're on the wrong one? And Violet's like, no, I've read every book that isn't true. Xaden reveals that he's been giving the Griffin Flyers weapons to kill Venin, which Violet still doesn't believe are real, and Xaden's like, yes, girl, yes, they are. Violet realizes, oh, they can't attack Navarre because the wards stop them, and Navarre knows that poor Miel is being attacked by Venin constantly and is just choosing not to do anything about it because the thing that kills the Venin is the thing that powers the wards. So that's why poor Miel was doing those border raids. That's why they were stealing supplies. They were looking for the stuff Navarre uses to power the wards so that they could forge those into anti-Venin weapons so that they wouldn't get totally destroyed. Then Xaden throws her this black-handled dagger. Alloy is embedded into the hilt, and it looks exactly the same as the dagger from her mom's desk, except it's not the same one. Her mom has her own. Her mom knows. Her mom knew about all of this and just didn't tell her. And also, Xaden could have told her this at any time, but he didn't. And he couldn't, because if pesky Dane saw her memory, their whole mission would be fucked. And Violet's like, Dane wouldn't do that. And Xaden's like, dude, his only personality trait is rules. Like, we all know that. But Xaden needs to know. Does Violet believe him? I glance at the dagger and hear the words in my father's letter as surely as if he'd spoken them. I know you'll make the right choice when the time comes. He warned me the only way he could have. Through books. Like, why didn't he just write this shit's real? Like, Mira wasn't going to open the fucking book. Nobody was going to open the fucking book. He could have just written that. What was stopping him? What was stopping him? So yes, she believes him. but she doesn't trust him anymore. On the way to Athebyne, Violet has herself a little think. There was no record of Venin in the archives. They didn't even have a copy of the Fables of the Baron. Also, the archives cover 400 years of books, but Navarre is 600 years old. And you could say, okay, maybe they only learned how to write 400 years ago. Did you ever think about that? But I did think about that because there are scrolls. There are scrolls from the unification, and that means they knew how to write back then. Those are the only things that are over 400 years old. So what does that mean? It was the scribes. It was the scribes. The scribes erased the truth way back then. The scribes were powerful after all. The most powerful thing in this world is book. So they land in Athebyne, and there should be 200 people at the outpost, but instead it's totally empty. Zane's like, hey, Violet, did you ever tell Dane about me going to Athebyne? Of course she didn't. But did Dane touch her after he told her about going to Athebyne? He did. He absolutely did. But Violet doesn't want to believe it for some reason. But that snake read her memories, and he didn't even ask. Garrick snoops around. He finds a letter. It's addressed to Xaden. It's from Dane's dad, and it says, the mission is to survive. If you can. And then just imagine him twirling his mustache evilly. Liam uses his super sight and sees that something is coming. Violet's like, this is my fault. Dane read my memories. He told his dad. I betrayed us. And Zane's like, no, dummy, we've been sent here to die. The letter says that this is a test of Zane's command. He can abandon the enemy village, or he can abandon command of the wing. Their loyalty is being tested. His jaw is ticking like crazy. Liam sees the Venin in the distance. There are 4 of them wearing sick purple robes. One of them has this big staff. They have these nasty, distended red veins coming out of their red eyes. Big Staff Wizard shoots off an explosion and blows up the gates of Resen. Violet's like, at least there aren't any wyvern, right, guys? Those are still fake, right? No, bitch, it's all real. Have you not figured this out? Have you not figured this out yet? It's all real. They're all real. The Griffin Flyers from the lake show up, and they're like, y'all are straight fucked. And Violet says, we can live as cowards or die as riders. So of course they're going to stay and fight. Down in the town, the Venin are burning everything with their special evil fire. They're going to have to fight the Venin on foot because only the daggers will kill them and they can't just start burning everybody. That would be evil. Before Violet goes and fights, she orders Andarna to stay back and hide until she's plot relevant. Violet is convinced that she's going to die, and she makes Andarna promise to run away if there's any real danger. Then there's a screech, and a massive gray dragon flies up from the valley, except it has 2 legs instead of 4. That's evil. That's an evil amount of legs. Violet's like, oh yeah, didn't Mira say that she thought she saw dragons across the border? Well, here it is. And the dragon shrieks and shoots blue fire. Blue fire. Blue. That's no dragon. That's a wyvern. And leadership has been redacting them. Leadership knew. Mira knew in her heart. They all knew. The conspiracy is all coming together in Violet's head. Xaden gives her another dagger before she mounts her dragon. And she's like, you're not going to lecture me about staying safe? And Xaden's like, babe, that's Dane's job. Violet also realizes that General Melgren knows the outcome of this battle. He knows they're fucked. Xaden's like, oh, he actually doesn't. And he just drops this and he'll elaborate on it later. Violet gets on Tarn and they fly. Tarn is leaving the dragons, obviously. Some of the gang is going to evacuate the village. And the Venin are just being evil. They are sucking the magic right out of the land. Slurp, slurp, slurp. They are draining civilians dry and creating this dead zone that you can't step into or you die. They manage to kill a wyvern, but then another Venin mounts a new wyvern. So it's like, shit, those are just going to keep popping up, aren't they? And there are so many of them, and they just keep going and going and going. Tarn's like, maybe you could use lightning to stop the wyvern. And Violet's like, I can't aim. And Tarn's like, no, babe, it's the climax of the book. You're gonna aim. And it's true. She's firing off more lightning. She's hitting some wyvern. It rules. Liam and Day are being chased by a wyvern, but Liam manages to get onto the wyvern and kill the Venin riding it. Tarn and Violet nearly get hit by a wyvern, but Day and Liam slam into it. Liam gets launched onto Tarn and Violet catches him. He's like, you saved my life, and now it's my turn. That's what friends do. He's sweet. I do like him. If there's any character in the book that I like and want to keep, it would be Liam. But Day and Wyvern are in this death roll, and Day is fighting for his life. The wyvern doesn't even seem to care about living, just killing Day. They tumble, they fall, and they hit the ground. Day is dead, which means Liam only has minutes to live. Violet gets him to Day. He makes her promise to take care of his sister Sloane at Parapet. And then she says, "Thank you, Liam. Thank you for being my shadow. Thank you for being my friend." And Liam says it's been his honor. Then he dies. There are somehow dozens of wyvern. Liam is dead. There has never been so much at stake. I've spent the last year trying to prove to myself I'm nothing like my mother. I'm not cold. I'm not callous. But maybe there is a part of me that's more like her than I care to admit. Because right now, standing near the dead body of my friend and his dragon, all I want is to show these assholes exactly how violent I can be. She must become violence. But before she really can, Taryn is hit. A she-venom has managed to mount him mid-air and then stabbed him. The second Taryn levels off, the venom stares at me like I'm her next meal, striding for me with nothing but resolve in her eyes and fisting serrated green-tipped daggers. What is it with fisting? That's probably why I kept this quote. People are always fisting things when they shouldn't be. Some people hate moist as a word. I'm not a huge fan of fisting. Xtina's world. This is not a fisting-friendly channel. Violet unstraps herself and does a little combat with the venom. Violet breaks an arm bone while blocking a stab because her bones are made out of glass. She-venom is way faster and stabs Violet in the side under the vest. And when Violet yanks out the blade, the tip is no longer green. Xaden swoops by and blocks out the playing field. They're in total darkness, but Violet knows Taryn like the back of her hand. She stabs the venom and kills it, but there's poison working through her veins. Now her best weapon is her mind. Sure, why not? As the venom dies, so too do the wyvern they created. They need to kill the venom riders, and there are only 2 left. And one of them is Big Staff, who they call the Sage. And I guess they aren't going to kill him for reasons. Maybe he teleports off. I don't know. Like, truthfully, I couldn't really tell why they didn't go after him. It doesn't seem like they killed him. I've read this book like 2 to 3 times now, and it's like I still feel kind of unclear on what happens to the Sage in this scene, so There's a rider and a horde of wyvern coming at them, and Violet has a plan. She charges up her lightning, pulling from Taryn to do it. She's so close to burning out. And Darna shows up, uses her power, and freezes time. Violet uses all of her power to control one bolt of lightning and drags it to the venom. It hits. The wyvern fall. Another rider comes towards them, but Xaden wields his shadows like a lasso, pulls the venom from the wyvern's back, and stabs him. They did it! They killed all the venom! They're gonna live! But not Violet. She falls from Taryn's back. She's cut off from her power and her mind palace. But she doesn't hit the ground. She hits Andarna. Andarna has used the very last of her power to stop time and save Violet. Xaden hugs her and begs her to live, but she's in so much pain from the poison that she can't speak. So she passes out. And then she keeps passing out and waking up. Imogen says they need to go back to Basgiath and see Nolan, but Xaden says they're somewhere closer. She's dying, Forrest. Xaden's carrying her and she doesn't know where she is. She hears a familiar voice, not even sure who. And she thinks, so many strangers. And no friends. Oh, like, shut up. What a loser. Oh my God, what are you talking about? The last chapter is in Xaden's perspective, so like for a split second, you're like, oh my God, they really did kill her. Cool. But then the first line is, she'll be all right, spoken by Scale in Xaden's head. So, Xaden's been sitting by Violet for 3 days. He mostly just broods on the events of the last chapter, and then he says, there were 1,000 tiny moments that pulled me over the edge for the woman asleep in the bed I always pictured her in. They're in his room, in his house. So Violet wakes up, and she's smiling, and she's happy, and she kisses him, and Zane's like, cool, thank you. Everything is fine, but Andarna is not quite the same. She is apparently huge now and no longer has her time-stalking power, but like he's not going to tell her that right now. So Violet gets up and she checks out where she is. They are in the rebuilt city of Aritia. Former capital of Tyrrendor. It's been secretly rebuilt from the ashes. Violet uses her deep knowledge of architecture and history to clock it immediately. She also uses her super smarts to deduce that the reason that 3 or more marked ones can't gather together is because General Melgren can't see what's happening. I don't know why he doesn't know this. I feel like he should have figured this out. Violet's mad, and she kicks Xaden out so that he can talk about other plot matters. So some of the Griffin Flyers survived. Garrick's dragon found a mysterious box in the clock tower in Ressen. Violet invites him back into the room, and he's like, "Are you in?" What are you talking about? Of course she's in. But she is not willing to trust him with her heart again. And she is not willing to be with somebody who she doesn't trust. Xaden vows to earn it back and make her love him again. Violet's like, was the missive at Athabine really about war games? Did we just accidentally end up in an attack? Or what was that? And then this dude comes in and he's like, that wasn't an accident. Little sister. She wasn't healed. She was mended by Brennan, who we thought was dead. And Brennan says, "Welcome to the revolution, Violet." Boom. That's the book. That's the book. Boom goes the dynamite. That's the book. Oh, wait. No, it's not, because I read the acknowledgments. First and foremost, thank you to my Heavenly Father for blessing me beyond my wildest dreams. This book, this book, the stretch you give this up to God? Okay, sure, why not? Oh my God, when I tell you, when I saw this for the first time, I cackled. I straight up cackled. This book is horny. This book is explicit. There is Panisia in this book, and this book is given up to God, and I just could not, I just grew up a little too Catholic for that. Anyways, that was Fourth Wing. So Violet as a main character. So this book is for adults, but Violet is presented in the very self-centered way that teenagers see themselves. I joke that she's the main character and everybody knows it, but that's pretty true in the book. Everybody knows that Terrence Scale are mates. Everybody watches intently as she goes up the gauntlet. Even Griffin Flyers know what she looks like literally by her hair alone, in a world where there don't seem to be a lot of pictures of people floating around. Violet is on everybody's mind all the time, and it really mirrors the way that you feel when you're 15 and you think everything's paying attention to everything you do all the time. This was an adult book, but it felt very juvenile. Also, the book is focused on Violet and her perspective almost to a fault if you start thinking about it. I know she's the main character, I know she's the narrator, but it is kind of weird how this world seems to revolve entirely around her. So there's a scene that I cut where this one side character, Arlie, dies, and later off page, Violet and Dane burn her stuff. And that's presented as something that people do for close family members, or that's something you would do with people who love that person the most. There's this implication there that Violet's one of the people at Basgiath closest to Arlie, and Arlie is only really mentioned in 3 pages, and it's sad. You're telling me that Violet is the closest friend that this girl had, and she has a footnote in Violet's life. I mean, she does have a rich tapestry of friends, but I guess I feel the times Violet shows up as a good friend, we see Violet get, we don't see Violet give. While we're on Violet, I have another gripe. So we are constantly told that Violet is very smart. And to her credit, she does seem nerdier than the other characters in the book. She has the history books memorized. She is resourceful enough to find poisons. She makes connections quickly in battle brief. Great student. But I've noticed from the now multiple times that I've read this book that she doesn't feel smart. There is this intellectual curiosity that smart people have that she totally lacks. There's this huge conspiracy theory going on around her. Her own mother is involved, and she doesn't seem really interested in seeing it or digging deeper into it at all. Even when she's looking at things that are fishy and don't make sense, even though she doesn't know there's a conspiracy theory, at no point does she ask her mom about Somerton. She doesn't ask her about the knife on her desk. She doesn't even ask her about the war with Poromia, or the supply raids, or what's going on with that. Not even to see if there's a conspiracy, but just oh, hey mom, you're a general. We learned about this. It seemed weird. What's up? Literally no curiosity, does not care to know. And you can say, well, Xtina, she doesn't have a good relationship with her mother. And sure, yeah, but it's shouldn't these questions be eating at her? Shouldn't she give a single fuck? How come when she asks Xaden about going to Athabine, which she knows is beyond the wards, she doesn't seem curious at all. What was he doing there? Why was he going there? She's just oh, you went there? Oh, okay, cool. Her siblings went through war school. You would think she would know if that was a normal thing that people do. And not that she'd know everything, but she would know something. She sees things that are wrong. She knows they're wrong. that she knows they don't make sense. And she's just like, oh well, okay. At the end of the day, like, I just roll my eyes every time I read that people are like, wow, Violet, you're so smart. Because it's like, no, she reads. She's literate. That's it. That's all. Violet and Xaden are like so similar to Farah and Rhysand. And it was like, I had read that before, you know, like it's a dynamic that doesn't really call to me. Like, I get it. The guy has trauma and darkness powers. The two of them are this badass couple that has each other's back, and they wear black and they don't give a fuck what you think about them. I felt like I had read it before, and it's just like, it wasn't for me then. It's not for me now. Side characters. If you have not read Fourth Wing and you were just watching this video, you have no idea just how many side characters that I cut. Do you know why I cut them? Because they do nothing to advance the plot. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of side characters who get decent page time. They have like actual personalities. They just like do not matter for advancing the plot. That just seemed like a waste to me. Like, I didn't want to cut them. We have a time limit. To be fair, like, they will come up in Iron Flame. If you are hungry for those side characters, like, just stay tuned. Okay, just stay tuned. This one is petty. So one thing about me is that I will latch on to a writing quirk. If there's just a kind of weird word that you use a lot, like, I'm sniffing it out. I'm there. And there are a lot of them in this book. Everybody's jaw is ticking, a thing that I still do not understand and cannot do. And those questions I mentioned, the ones I read annoyingly, they're there too. Another one, and I feel like I really started to notice this in Iron Flame, but you do start to see it, especially in the second half of this book for some reason, is the phrase like well aware comes up so much. Like, everybody's aware. Everybody's aware. Everybody's well aware. You tell somebody something like well aware. All of these characters ostensibly come from like different provinces, like areas, like the different cultures, and it's like they all talk the same. And last of all, this book is just profoundly repetitive, and I feel like you're gonna hear more of this gripe from me. Like, I feel like I've noticed this so much more with books lately. I do actually think that that's part of why this book is so popular. It expects very little from you. If you're somebody who doesn't have the attention span for reading, like if you're scrolling your phone, if you're a busy gal, if you're on Netflix, like, you will still understand what's happening in this book. Dane will tell Violet that he wants her to be safe. Jack will say that he wants to kill Violet. You will hear the same piece of exposition a few different times. Did you miss a clue? Don't worry about it, because the clues will not be investigated until the truth drop at the end. Feel free to just scroll on your phone. Do whatever. You take care of you. You only have to tune back in for the climax. Okay, so that was my gripes. Anyways, that's it. That's the book. That's the end. Honestly, like, I still really enjoyed it. I don't think it was good, but it was fun. And like, I would not have spent all of this time on this book if it wasn't fun. So if you haven't read the book already, do check it out. Like, it's an easy read. It's a fun read. It's silly. If you want a fun read, you'll have fun with it. If you liked this video, or if you felt some kind of way about Fourth Wing that was fundamentally opposed to everything that I said here, you just let me know down in the comments, okay? I want to hear about it. And if you have any other books or series that you'd like me to cover or talk about, or even just read, let me know. Tell me all about them. Like, comment, subscribe, whatever. Like, it would mean a lot to me, because I'm just getting started, and this is just a fun thing for me. So, all right, cool. Bye.